What's going on, everyone? Welcome. I'm so excited to be bringing you my draft analysis for the Pokemon Premier League, the PPL. Like I said in my update video, this is a league that I've been watching for such a long time, even like back when I was a kid. So to take part of it and be a part of this big project is honestly just such an honor. So I had to come back for it. It's going to be 8 weeks long, and then hopefully we make playoffs, and hopefully we can just see how far we can go. But I am rusty, and hopefully I can get back into the rhythm of things, but at the same time I'm not going to be tryharding this league like I have leagues in the past. I'm going to be just trying to have fun with Gen 9, figuring out how Scarlet and Violet works, and just get used to everything. That's the goal here, and I have a team that I think is pretty good. I think it's something that I'm going to have a lot of fun using, and I'm really excited to share it with you all. As you may have already seen, we have a new team logo and new team mascots. Those team mascots are Minun and Plusle, which I'm so excited to be showcasing as part of my team name and logo. They're just some of my favorite mons right now, and it's cool to have a team name and logo that's representative of my move to London. I think that's really, really cool. So I hope you enjoy this season and new team, the London Shockwave, and the team that we have drafted, which I'm going to not waste any more time on and get into right now. Okay, so team, we had the first pick in the entire draft, which is great because we get the first pick overall, but it's also great because every subsequent round of picks we get to pick 2 at a time, which means that even though I have a ton of Pokemon in between each pick, I have to wait for 28 picks to go by every time. I still get to pick 2 at once, so I'm less worried about snipes in that sense. Anyway, with the first overall pick, it's pretty obvious what we had to pick up. It's Dragapult. It's the most broken mon. It's pretty universally agreed to be like one of the best Pokemon in Draft League, if not the best Pokemon in Draft League. But I was really excited to pick it up because I've never actually used it in Draft League, surprisingly enough. I've never been first pick, so I figured that now was a better time than ever. I thought that even though it's a Pokemon from last gen, it's not a new Pokemon, it's a new Pokemon to me, and it's something that I think I'm going to enjoy using, especially because in Gen 9, something that's so important is speeds. Having just speedy Pokemon that are able to outpace the opponent in offensive games, and Dragapult is like the speediest Pokemon in the meta. Dragapult also has the added advantage of being able to switch between being a really strong special breaker and a really strong physical breaker. The challenge is drafting around it in such a way where you have equal amounts of physical and special breakers that you don't force it into one role. You also want to have good setup options, you also want to have good revenge options and things like that, so Dragapult isn't pigeonholed into one single role, and that's something that we're going to look to do through the remainder of this draft in our subsequent picks. But all in all, Dragapult, there's not much to say about it. It's just a really, really good mon that I'm really excited to use, and I hope I can get a ton out of it, and you can see me use it in a maybe unique and new way that you haven't seen before. So like I said before, we have 2 picks to do for round 2 and round 3 back to back, and those 2 picks that I did, I'm going to do these 2 together, were Kingambit and Glimmora. Both of these Pokemon are really good because they punish the fairy types that Dragapult likes to pivot out on, and they're both a physical attacker and a special attacker, and honestly a physical breaker and a special breaker. Kingambit is undeniably a physical breaker. It's insanely powerful, and it's also insanely bulky, so it can't be KO'd in one hit. It's something that threatens out pretty much every single fairy type and can't be KO'd back. And it's just a super, super strong Pokemon that is a new Pokemon that I really wanted to use. And it also gives me priority, which is great, because even though it's not a fast Pokemon, it can be fast in its priority, which is a very good thing for this generation. Glimmora is also a Pokemon that has caught my eye since the start of the generation as a potential special breaker that can break fairy types, but also it has the really strong ability to set up T-spikes if it's hit by a physical attack, and also set up rocks and spikes on its own. So Generation 9, more than any other generation, is defined by hazard setting, so you want to have the best possible hazard setters on your team, because there isn't any good removal this generation. So having Glimmora offers me that, but it also offers me a ton of other versatile options. It can be a pretty physically defensive Pokemon, it can be a specially defensive Pokemon, it can be it can be a special breaker, it can be a Scarfer, it can be a rock polish sweeper. There's so many things that it can do, and it has the same special attack stat as Neolego, and even though it doesn't get Meteor Beam, it gets Earth Power, which Neolego always lacked, and I really enjoyed using Neolego last season of the CGT. So how could I not like Glimmora? My goal for Glimmora this season is not to pigeonhole it into a hazard setting lead. I want to make sure that it can do other things on my team and that I can use it to its full versatile potential. Next up is round 4 and round 5, back to back. And there's a Pokemon that I really wanted to get as one of my Pokemon during this round, and that is Zapdos. It checked every box that I was looking for. It had a ground immunity, it had some bulk with recovery, it was just a strong special breaker. That meant I didn't have to rely on Glimmora to do that. It was perfect. It's what I needed. It gave my teams the bulk that I was looking for. Unfortunately, Envy took it. Fuck you, Envy. I'm just kidding. I actually kind of told Envy to take it because I didn't think it was going to make it back around to me. But it's fine. It's absolutely fine. It's okay. Because we got some pretty good picks. And in hindsight, I actually think these picks were better for my team than Zapdos would have been. So the first pick that we got for round 4 was Galarian Zapdos. What Galarian Zapdos offers, instead of regular Zapdos, is that it's a really reliable Scarfer. And with Dragapult and its speed potential, you don't want it to be solely relied on as the Revenger, as the Scarfmon that is fast. But Galarian Zapdos is a reliable Scarfer in that sense that it can pivot around with Dragapult and be super speedy and punish Pokemon switching in, and if I have a ton of hazards up that are set up by Glimmora, it just becomes really, really good. It still gives me the ground immunity that I was looking for in regular Zapdos, and I think it's just going to be a good mon. It doesn't have to be Scarf though. I don't want to pigeonhole it into that idea just for my team. It can be bulky, supportive, setup. It can do a lot of different things with like agility, bulk up sets, and I'm really excited to explore its versatility, to be honest. But I am still looking for bulk with reliable recovery, so for round 5 we picked up Gastrodon. It adds some really nice bulk to my team. It gives me 2 really crucial immunities, and it was buffed this generation by getting Stealth Rocks and Spikes. Now you might already say you already have Stealth Rocks and Spikes in Glimmora, but it's important to stack those roles on top of each other because I don't want every single week Glimmora to have to be the hazard setter or Gastrodon to have to be the hazard setter. I want to be able to pick between the two so I can explore both their roles in different ways. And I think the fact that I have 2 really strong hazard setters with pretty much like the ability to set both rocks and spikes depending on what's best in the matchup is really good. I mean, I could also bring both of them at once, one with Stealth Rock, one with spikes. Like, that's insane. Like I said, Gastrodon gives me some much needed bulk to my team that has recovery, which none of my team has as it stands, and it lost Scald. That's probably its biggest like nerf this generation, but I think the hazards make up for it, and I also think that it never really needed Scald necessarily. It has versatile coverage moves, it has strong dual stab, it can still pressure opponents well. I don't think it was a mon that relied on Scald that heavily in previous generations, so I'm excited to use it and hopefully use it well. It's been a while since I picked up Gastrodon. Gastrodon's the first Pokemon that I picked up on this team that I've used before, but it's been a long time, so I'm excited. So for round 6 and round 7, we have to fix our balance between physical and special attackers on this team. Because I picked up Galarian Zapdos instead of regular Zapdos, we're low on special attackers, and we don't want to force Dragapult to be specs every single week. So one of the biggest things I'm looking for this pick, or this series of picks for round 6 and round 7, is to get a really, really strong special breaker, and that Pokemon is Gardevoir. I don't have a Psychic type yet, I don't have a Fairy type yet, and those are 2 of the best offensive typings this generation, and Gardevoir offers me both of them. Gardevoir with just Specs Moonblast or Scarf Moonblast can plow through a ton of teams because we're low on Steel types this generation, so the resists are few and far between. I will probably bring Gardevoir offensive most weeks, but the fact is that I will have available move slots, and the Gardevoir has some pretty nice utility options. It can run Will-O-Wisp, it can run Knockoff, it can run Encore, all of which are moves that I think are really effective on Gardevoir in general. So I'm excited to see how I can use it, but really I just want to be clicking Specs Moonblast all season. That would be pretty cool. It's another mon that I've never used before, and I'm excited to try it out. I think that it pairs really, really well with Dragapult because it breaks a lot of bonds that Dragapult likes broken, and ultimately it's a Pokemon that comes in on if I pivot with Galarian Zapdos or Dragapult, and it can just click a button because it's that strong. For round 7, on the same wheel, we picked up Rotom-Mow, another special attacker that can be a special breaker if it wants to with like Nasty Plot and stuff like that. I think that's pretty good. I think it also gives me a Volt Switch pivoter, so it gives me another mon that I can pivot with Dragapult and Zapdos. And it also gives me screens, which I really, really like. I think there's a lot of Pokemon on my team, like King Gambit, Dragapult, and even Galarian Zapdos that benefit from screens being up to allow it to set up more easily, because Dragapult and Zapdos in particular aren't the bulkiest Pokemon, but with screens it enables them to be able to set up more effectively. Rotom-Mow also gives me another ground immunity. I don't need to rely on Zapdos for just that, which is pretty cool. And the great thing that I like about this wheel pick, where I got Gardevoir and Rotom-Mow, is that I have 2 Pokemon that are reliable Scarfers, and that means that I don't have to put Zapdos in that box. I can sort of pick between the 3, which of the 3 I want to use as my Scarf for every week. At this point in the draft, I'm like pretty satisfied. I think my team is really good, and I don't really have a problem with it at all. I think it's honestly one of the best teams I've had so far. It's perfect. Terastallization. Kind of forgot about that throughout the course of the draft. That's a thing this league. Now, this league's a little bit different because low tier Tera is the rule of the league, and you are allowed to pick Pokemon 9 points and under, capable of Terastallization. And at this point in the draft, I thought to myself, okay, I have a really good set of Pokemon, but none of them can Terastallize. So let's start looking at Pokemon that can Terastallize and add a little bit more benefit to my team. So for this next wheel of round 8 and round 9, we picked up 2 Tera capable Pokemon, and that is Tauros, which is just a strong physical breaker that is fast. And while I don't think speed tiers are necessarily important in Draft League as much as people hype them up to be, having a Pokemon that is capable of revenging things without needing to be Choice Scarf is pretty nice, given that as of right now, my Revengers are my Scarfers and Dragapult. So to have a Revenger that is a little bit faster and doesn't necessarily rely on being Scarf in order to do that revenging is pretty nice. Generally speaking though, Tauros is just a powerhouse. It's known as a powerhouse in general without even being Terastallized, but in Terra Normal, I can pretty much have Adaptability Sheer Force Tauros, which just sounds horrifying. Plus I can Terra Ground, which makes me hit bulky Steel types a little bit better, and I can Terra Electric, which allows me to hit bulky Water types or things like Corviknight. Breaking those fat Steels and Waters with Tauros is really good to free up things like a Scarf Zapdos or a Kingambit in the late game, which I think is going to be really, really good for my team. The other Tera Pokemon I got on this wheel is Tera Tatsugiri, which I thought was the biggest steal in the draft for only 3 points. Like, that's crazy. 3 points. Even though Tatsugiri is really, really small, it has a ton of potential. I think that with Terastallization, it enables it to set up more than it's able to without Terastallization. With Nasty Plot and Rapid Spin, it's pretty bulky if I can EV it to be so, plus if you factor in Terastallization, there's so many more mind games that enables more turns to allow Tatsugiri to get that Nasty Plot up and get that Rapid Spin up. With the mind games of Terastallization and some good investment in bulk, Tatsugiri has the potential to have more turns and more series of mind games to allow it to get that Nasty Plot and Rapid Spin up and sweep teams. I picked Tera Water so that I can have boosted Hydro Pumps off a really strong base 120 special attack stat, Tera Electric so I can blow past bulky Waters, things like a Azumarill, which I couldn't touch beforehand, and Tera Steel, which allows me to set up with a really strong defensive typing if I'm being hit with, like, I don't know, fairy type moves or something like that. It also offers me Rapid Spin. Like I said, I think that's a little bit more for its speed boost, but having a spinner is pretty nice since I have so many hazards that I'm trying to use. To have a Pokemon that can clear hazards off of my side and not have to worry about removing hazards on my opponent's side is pretty nice. Glimar already does that with Mortal Spin, but having a second one can't hurt. Okay, at this point in the draft, I'm just going to pick up 2 more Pokemon. I have 14 points left. I want to make one more big purchase before the draft ends, and that big purchase was Arcanine. It gives me an offensive fire type, it gives me more resistances to Fairy and Ice, which I was lacking in the first place, and what I really like about it is that it gives me a strong mixed attacker, which Dragapult was really the only one that I had so far. It gives me a bit of unpredictability on my team, and what I like about Arcanine, and I've used it a lot in the past, is that it can be a defensive Pokemon, especially offensive Pokemon, a physically offensive Pokemon. It can do a lot of things. The other thing is that it gives me reliable priority, which I don't have on my team outside of Dragapult and Kingambit running Sucker Punch, and the latter of those is really the only one that's most reliable on my team. I think E-Speed Arcanine is going to be pretty good to have on my team because there's a lot of fast breakers and fast sweepers this generation that I'm going to have a little bit of trouble revenging with this team if I'm not having another strong priority user. So Arcanine enables that for me. It's also nice to have an Intimidator. Tauros can Intimidate, but I think most of the time I'm running Sheer Force, so Arcanine running Intimidate's going to be pretty good. And I think when I was just drafting, I identified a lot of Pokemon that I'm weak to. My team is a little bit weak to. I have a hard time dealing with if they set up. And Arcanine was kind of a counter pick for those Pokemon. I'm not going to say what they were, but just look out. 2 points left, not much really to pick up, but I am able to get a third Tera capable Pokemon. I wanted to make sure I picked up a Pokemon this pick that wasn't a waste. Even though it's only 2 points, with Tera possibilities, I could be picking up a total steal here. And the Pokemon I decided that I thought would be the best option for me is actually Tera Go-Go. It sounds kind of crazy, it sounds kind of wacky, but with Sap Zipper and the ability to Tera into water and rock, it offers me a really defensive Pokemon that can be a grass immunity while simultaneously being another typing that's a strong defensive typing. A defensive typing that would otherwise be weak to grass. Upon first glance, I think this Pokemon has 2 really strong options. I think it can run really strong bulk up sets, which can surprise and sweep my opponents, or it can run Leech Seed sets, which can disrupt in a defensive way. I don't know how often I'm going to bring Tera Go-Goat, but having it on my team definitely will force some mind games for some opponents, for sure. And that's my team. Let me know what you think of it in the comments, or, you know, in future videos. Let me know how you think it's gonna perform. I honestly think it's one of the best teams in the league. I don't really see too many flaws with it. I don't think that I'm missing anything important. I think that I have a ton of roles covered. I think I have a lot of synergy. I'm just excited for it, and I think it's gonna be a fun team to build with, a fun team to try. We got a lot of new Pokemon, we got a lot of old Pokemon that I've never gotten to use, and we have some returning mons that I've used before, like Arcanine and Gastrodon. So I'm excited to try it out. If you're excited for my Draft League return and my new team name and upcoming quality content on the channel, shout out Jay Ricky who edited this video. Go check him out. Yeah, stay tuned. It's just gonna be a great season. I'm very excited for it. Look forward to it. It's gonna be a great time. And I'll see you all next week for our week 1 where we go up against Nexus.